up, Nigeria? Welcome to your number one gossip show. Yes, this is Street Gist with your boy Alanza. This is the number one show that gives you sweet gossip and at the same time we entertain and educate you. Now, in life, there are two things involved. Life in Nigeria, there are two things involved. It's either you are a landlord or you are a tenant. Now, if you're a landlord, you are saved. But if you're a tenant, there are two things involved. It's either you have that landlord that is very, very peaceful and most likely doesn't live with you, or you have that landlord that can be very, very unbearing. That landlord that can be a pain in the All right, so last week I was in a conversation with one of my very, very good friends, and my guy kept on lamenting about how unbearing his landlord could be. Highlight of it was that the landlord told him that they are not allowed to use gas in the house. Like, exactly, who does that? That was my exact reaction. I was wondering, like, this is Abuja. Who doesn't use gas? Like, I'm not talking about how kerosene price can be so unstable, but the fact that gas is so durable. I won't go into the pros and cons of it, but the fact still remains that some Nigerian landlords tend to give some kind of unbearing rules and regulations, terms and conditions for their tenants to abide by. So we'll be hitting the streets of Nigeria this afternoon to get to know what Nigerians have to say about it. What's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you? Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
Wow. Okay. His name is, I'll call his name, Augustus. Back then in school, he said I shouldn't invite anybody in the house, that it's talk away you're going to get fueled. Wow. That man is the craziest man I've ever seen. And then what other rules again? Okay, he said we shouldn't bring friends in the compound, like around 9 o'clock. You don't want to see, if you're not a member of the, if you're not a tenant, you shouldn't be found in the compound. Like,
tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
Good afternoon, everybody. So the craziest rule my landlord has been giving me, even he's still giving me the craziest rule now. He said I should stop cooking with gas. I should stop cooking with gas. That I can only cook with stove. That if I cook with gas, maybe it will cause a lot of damage in his house. And he also said that I should not drink alcohol. So if I drink alcohol, say I may got intoxicated, and something else may happen. So there are many rules that he has been giving me. So the rules don't make me so safe. Me, I won't park over that house now. As it be so now, so they go outside, they park, they go out the house where I rent you now.
What's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
There are several, many of them, but the one I'm so particular about is they tell you this room you're renting is just for you and you alone. No friends should come in to see you, male, female. It should just be you. I mean, it's somehow, how can I rent a room? I rent a house or a room or something, and they tell you, it's just you and you alone. Because sometimes this landlord, they live inside the same compound with you, and when they live inside the same compound with you, they begin to monitor your movements. You're going out and coming in. Sometimes when you go out, they open their curtain to see, or they open their window to see who's there. When you're coming, they see if you're coming with somebody or not. It's uncalled for.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
My landlord said I should not put AC. If I put the AC, that the wall will be shaky, that the house can collapse. Secondly, he said I should not use ceiling fan. That it's best to use standing fan. I was like, for what? I said, no, just give my money, let me back out. And thirdly, he was like, then I was single. He was like, no man is allowed to come. I said, am I a lesbian? I need a man to come and marry me. I'm not a lesbian.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
Yeah, the craziest rule landlord have ever given me was that I too much bring friends to the house. So for that, it's not comfortable. He now gave me a good notice.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
Okay, the craziest rule my landlord has ever given me is he told me not to come to the house with more than one girl.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
In my where I'm staying, my landlord is a very good man. When he gives us rules, he doesn't like, if you are working, if you are a worker, he gives you a house to stay. But the rules he gives to us, he doesn't want a lot of people that comes into the house anyhow, because he doesn't like that. Because maybe you can go and bring a criminal into the house, will come and survey the house, to know what is inside there, to know which kind of people are there, so that they can bring to kidnap a lot of people. So that's how a landlord is a good man in how he do his things, because I appreciate him very well. If I'm a landlord, I'll do also the same thing like him.
So, sir, tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
In some cases, when the landlord is leaving the compound with the tenant, then the landlord will say, this space is my own space, you must not cross this boundary of this place. Because the boundary, you have violated my rules and regulations.
So the landlord led demarcated places.
Yes, you must not pass this particular place. This place is my own, this place for tenants.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
My landlord told me not to use a gas cooker. Like, serious, no using of gas cooker for my own money that I paid for to rent a house.
Sir, tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
Okay, a landlord has not really, the craziest rule is like increment. They want to increase your rent without your permission, without any improvement in whatever you are doing. They just wake up and say, I'm increasing your rent. So that's one of the craziest rules I've ever gotten.
What's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
I think not to accommodate anybody in the house except me.
Tell me, what's the craziest rule a landlord has ever given you?
So there was this time I was playing music in my mom's house, and the landlord came to me and said, no loud music in my house, like off everything, no loud music. So yeah, that was it.
Okay, Nigerians, you've heard what the streets have to say about this. Now in Nigeria, we have what we call the Nigerian Tenancy Act, and it states that tenants are entitled to a statement of agreement which should entail all the terms and conditions before payment is being made. Secondly, tenants are also entitled to be issued with a receipt as evidence of payment. And lastly, tenants are entitled to live in peace in that property that is being rented. And that's all we're taking for today. But before I go, I want to throw out a big challenge, a very good challenge for you out there. Why don't you go out there, share, like, comment on this post, and the first 10 people stand a chance of winning 500 Naira airtime thanks to SGTV. That's all for today. I am Alanza, aka The Talking Drum. See you next week. Bye.